you've read, I'm sure, and heard what the NBA and NBA players came to in some sort of agreement out of this protest. I can just kind of summarize it here real quick for you if you haven't seen. So they're going to establish a social justice coalition. They're going to try and promote civic engagement, voting, advocating for meaningful police and criminal justice reform. They're going to try and open up, if the team owns the arena, they want to open up those arenas as a voting polling place. And if it's too late, well, then they can still use it for something else having to do with the elections, including voter registration or ballot receiving boards. And then the league's going to work with their players, the network partners, to create and include advertising spots. And those advertising spots are going to promote greater civic engagement in national and local election and raising awareness around voter access and opportunity. Do you believe that the NBA players accomplished enough? Anything? What are your thoughts on their accomplishments having protested for the past couple of days?
Let's walk through this at a couple of angles, Doug. First, I respect the NBA players putting their money where their mouth is. They're clearly men of conviction when it comes to this issue. They believe very deeply and are willing to sacrifice at least some of their professional benefits to accomplish what it is they believe. They have taken a step beyond the generic, we need change. If you listen to sports talk radio at any point or sports talk television over the last several days, the mantra you've heard over and over is there must be change. Well, that doesn't mean much. Change doesn't mean much of anything, and at least there's some small step beyond change offered here in the NBA players' demands. But is it something that I can co-sign? Do I think is good and progressive change? If you'll allow me, Doug, let me just walk through a very complicated issue with you in terms of how I see it. I definitely recognize there is racism in the United States of America. I also think there's problems within law enforcement. The data shows, and personal experience reflects, a lot of that comes in low-level interactions, negative interactions between law enforcement and Black Americans. From that, though, athletes and many in the media ask us to accept a premise which I cannot accept. And it goes like this. In the words of LeBron James, Black men are being hunted down in the streets of America.
Yeah.
That simply is not true. It is not reflected in the data. And when you go through case-by-case situations, whether or not it be Jacob Blake or others, and you have to look at the evidence and facts, LeBron James' statement is not backed up. From that, Doug, an entire narrative is built. The United States is racist to its core,
right,
and requires some drastic fundamental change. Now I have a problem. What change do you want? I do not agree with the indictment of the United States of America to its core. And if the NBA players want to establish themselves as political players, do I have to sign up to every political agenda you are putting forward? Otherwise, I'm a racist. These are my problems. These are the things that I appreciate and the things that I must reject in what the players are doing.
And I would also say, and I would also add this, that, and I think Jason Whitlock wrote this in a piece in Outkick. Will Cain, our guest, Doug Gottlieb Show, Fox Sports Radio. Just so you know, Joy Taylor's going to join us upcoming in about 10 minutes or so. Is that I think in addition to a couple of those issues which you pointed out, it's to me one of the big core issues is, and we don't know if this was a bad shoot or a good shoot, right? And in the we want change and we want answers, and you're demanding that an investigation be sped up. And I have a problem with people who say they want justice, but they don't actually understand, or they're not willing to allow real justice to take place, right? Real justice in the Jacob Blake case is investigation. And if the investigation proves that gives enough evidence to take it to a grand jury to indict the police officer, you indict the police officer. You charge him with a crime. He gets charged with a crime. There's a preliminary hearing. Then there's a hearing. And then whatever the jury or the judge finds, that is justice. That's how justice looks. But I do not believe that's what's being demanded. They just want haul off, arrest the guy, throw him in shackles, and be done with him, right? That's what people want. And that's not the process by which we have determined that we go through, whether you like it or don't like it. Like, again, if you want change, maybe you can fight for change in that process if you think that will work. That's my first thing. The second part would be, and this is what Whitlock wrote about, which is, hey, every time there's a negative interaction between a white person and a black person, it's not necessary. How do we know that racism is at its core? Right? Like, Look, I'm disturbed, incredibly disturbed that the cops, like, he's walking across the car. I don't know. I know they tried to tase him previously. I don't understand why he was able to get free. I really don't understand why you plug a guy 7 times in the back. I'm disturbed by the video. That said, what in it tells me that it has to be racism at its core, simply because the officer is white and the Jacob Blake is black. Like that, I don't know. And I don't. When do we get to this place where every bad interaction, there's racism at its core?
You know, Doug, there's a reason that the symbol of justice in the United States of America is a lady with a blindfold over her eyes. It is designed to work slowly, methodically, and colorblind. It is designed to be exactly as you just described it, with an investigation, sober-minded, and looking at the facts and the evidence. I saw the Wisconsin, I believe, Assistant Attorney General or Attorney General speak last night, wherein he said, we don't need an investigation to know what is happening to black men across this country. What he is telling us is he is not interested in justice. He is interested in narrative. And narrative, and I try to be very sober-minded about all this stuff, but I do get passion on something like this. Narrative, if false, and much of this narrative, not all, but much of it is false, i.e. hunted down in the streets, as LeBron James has echoed, causes deep racial division in this country. And if we don't take a quick look around, what we are failing to see is that is literally leading to violence in the streets. Last night in Washington, D.C., on the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin. It is tearing this country apart at the seams. Whitlock, what he wrote, you're absolutely right. And I tweeted about this the other day, for which, as usual is the case, I received a ton of backlash. Every step of the way you have to ask questions. Was this a quote-unquote justified or unjustified shooting? That's determined by whether or not a reasonable cop would have feared for his life when Jacob Blake was reaching into his car. That's for a jury to decide, not me. But I know not only is it a legitimate question, it is the just question. Was it racially motivated? I don't know that. You don't know that. None of us know that. But we certainly treat everything in society today, as you just pointed out, if it involves a black man and a white man, then it is attributed to race.
No. Well, a little bit. I mean, like, look, here's where I will, like, the Montrezl Harrell calling Luka Doncic. And I know it's sports, and I feel like sports is different, or at least it used to be different. I don't think as much, and maybe, I don't know. I don't think that's the same feeling. Like when Montrezl Harrell said that to Luka Doncic, I didn't think of it as racist. I thought he was just talking trash, right? But it feels like when there's the negative interaction from the white person to the black person, now there's always race as the cause. And maybe it's an underlying thing. And now here would be the part where I would push back into. Will Cain, our guest, Fox and Friends co-host, weekends on Fox News. Kind of have to spend some time with us here. Doug Gottlieb Show, Fox Sports Radio. I do think that we could find some agreement in that that whether it's profiling, whether it's movies, stories, or even the data that shows us the number of incarcerated black people, but some of that is based upon the laws and the punishment for crimes which were more readily committed in impoverished parts of town. Like there is a reason that a lot of black people have the feeling that they've been harassed by cops. I agree with you. Cops are not hunting down black men. That's a ridiculous statement, that there is absolutely no proof. And LeBron saying that he fears for his children is also a ridiculous statement, which makes anybody else who's black like, look, if LeBron's scared and he's got a security detail, well, then hell, I should be scared, which is, again, ridiculous. But anyone, and you have black friends, and so do I, has enough black friends, like, yeah, man, I feel like I've been harassed by the cops just because I'm black, and we have seen enough of those incidents. There is something to the feeling of being black in America. You're going to deal with cops differently than being white in America.
You know, there was a funny compliment people used to give me when they listened to the radio show or on social media. I like Will Cain. I don't agree with everything he says, but I like Will Cain. And I'm thinking to myself, Well, who does agree with anyone 100% of the time? Doug, I see you looking for places of disagreement. We don't disagree yet. You may want to find one, and I would understand the motivation, but we don't have one yet. I totally agree with you. Not every racial interaction between a black or a white person is attributed to race. The point I was trying to get at a moment ago is, but we in society are treating it like that. Yeah. I don't care about Montrez and Luka. I didn't care a bit about that, and I don't care about the double standard. It doesn't need to be some big indictment on society and our race. And we do not also disagree on African Americans' experience with law enforcement. I totally agree. Mandatory minimum sentencing has had a negative effect on the African American community and should have been resolved, has been resolved largely. There are others, stop and frisk, that had a disproportionate impact on black Americans. I absolutely would not contend that there has been no systemic, quote unquote, systemic or law enforcement negative effect on black people in this country. I would not contend that whatsoever. And I would look for places of improvement and agreement. But what I cannot do is accept the falsehood. I cannot sit here and immediately jump to a conclusion on Jacob Blake. I cannot indict the United States of America to its core. I don't care if in response I will be called a racist. I know who I am. I know what my principles are. And the truth of the matter is, right now, I see those who would cast the aspersion of racist making the most racist opinions and accusations and holding the most racist positions out there right now.
That's a great point. Will, last thing, I do think, and I felt like Rachel Nichols kind of, she didn't allude to it. She basically said it where she's like, look, on her show, The Jump, can the NBA, dictate which people own teams based upon essentially their political beliefs? We seem to have gotten to this place to where, yes, I think it's a great thing, not a good thing, a great thing where the players and the governors, owners, whatever, are trying to create more the ability for everybody to vote. But I do get the sense that they're like, look, we want you to vote, but we want you to vote for our guy, not for your guy. Whoever your guy, right? That's we want you to speak your mind as long as you agree with us.
I saw Rachel say that on The Jump yesterday as well. Doug, you love sports. I love sports. I'm not leaving sports. I may be talking politics and news as well now, but I'm not going to stop talking sports. I love it to my core, man, and have since I was a kid. But it seems to me that sports is telling me right now I have to accept their politics or I can't be a fan. And I'm not the only one. It seems they're sending a message, agree with my political position, or you can't own a team. Agree with my political position, or we don't need your viewership. Agree with my political position and come to the arena to vote my way. And I'm just telling you, this is suicide. It is self-destruction. It is suicide if sports goes down this road. And the real test, by the way, I love basketball like you love basketball, but the real test will be football, college football, and the NFL. If it goes that way, will Americans tune out? I'm just telling you, anecdotally, many have told me they will.
Yeah, we'll see. And I think it's a good thing that the NBA came back because football is starting in a week and a half, and there'll already be the struggles in competing with football, as we both know. And let's see what happens with football with the protests as well. Will, great stuff. Look forward to seeing you this weekend. Don't be a stranger. You have the open phone line whenever you want to join us. We appreciate you being our guest.
Cool, man. Thanks, Doug.